Every day, over 9 million construction workers are on the job in our country, building and maintaining roads, houses, workplaces, and physical infrastructures. Their goal is to finish every project on schedule, under budget, and with the highest quality of work. But they also need to complete the job with a good safety record, and that isn't always easy. Hello, my name is Jim Bratton. Let's face it, construction work is a high-hazard occupation. On any construction site, there can be potentially dangerous tasks and conditions, such as work at heights, excavations, noise, dust, power tools and equipment, confined spaces, electricity, and hazardous chemicals, just to name a few. There's no question about it. To be safe, we have to be smart. That means recognizing the hazards on our sites, knowing the basic guidelines for on-the-job safety, and working together to follow these guidelines. If we each do our part, not only can we get the job done effectively, we can get it done safely. Today we're going to introduce you to the primary areas of concern in workplace safety. These are housekeeping, personal protective equipment, fall protection, vehicle safety, excavations, electrical hazards, hazardous materials, material handling, and substance abuse. We can only touch briefly on each of these areas today. If you have questions, talk to the person responsible for safety at your job site, a supervisor, foreman, or safety manager. When we work together to analyze the work steps, the hazards, and the protective measures, we all have a key to prevention. Some people call this process a job hazard analysis. I call it teamwork. Take housekeeping, for example. Simply keeping the workplace clean can make a difference in safety. A big difference if everyone does his or her part. In construction, housekeeping translates into tidiness and organization. By looking at the housekeeping on a site, you can usually tell if basic safety principles are being followed. If you find a messy job site, you will usually find other safety problems as well. Poor housekeeping can lead to a simple trip, a slip, or a serious fall. To prevent these accidents, be sure to have your own personal housekeeping plan and clean up after yourself as you work. Keep tools in a job box so they are out of the way and where everyone can find them. Stack materials or pile neatly, again, out of the way. Always remove or hammer down nails in scrap lumber. And keep aisles free of debris so there's a clear path for foot traffic. Good housekeeping boils down to good planning and paying attention to detail. Remember, if everyone does his or her part, your workplace will be cleaner and safer, and everyone will be able to work more efficiently. Now let's talk about personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment is a common line of defense against many workplace hazards, and it's your responsibility to use good, reliable PPE whenever you're exposed to these hazards. Generally, there are two types of personal protective equipment. The equipment that you need every day, and equipment that's unique to the job. Here's a short list of basic necessities. Always wear a hard hat on the job site. Brim forward is recommended and required by some employers. Most contractors are now requiring safety glasses at all times. This makes a lot of sense when you consider the potential for eye injuries in the workplace. It's also a good idea to wear safety-toed work boots. High-topped boots will offer good ankle support. Good oil-resistant no-slip shoes are also a wise choice. Tennis shoes or basketball shoes are never acceptable. Pretty obvious why, isn't it? Believe me, you'll appreciate a good pair of boots after a few days on the job, and you'll be glad you made the investment. Long-sleeved shirts will protect you from scratches and sunburn, and gloves will save a lot of wear and tear on your hands. It's pretty simple, really. Just think about the situations you might encounter during the day and dress accordingly. At times, you'll need some special equipment to protect you from specific hazards. For example, you may need a respirator to protect you from dust, vapors, or fumes. Keep in mind that not all respirators will protect you from all respiratory hazards. Before you use a respirator, make sure a qualified person has instructed you on how to select the proper respirator and has trained you to use it correctly. Eye and face protection, like respirators, require specific equipment for specific hazards, such as flying particles, splashing chemicals, or light from a welding torch. Remember that regular safety glasses don't protect you from all of the eye and face hazards in the workplace. Make sure that what you're using is appropriate for the particular hazard. High visibility clothing may also be necessary depending on your job. Most states and contractors require high visibility clothing during utility, road, and highway work. To help ensure safety, you may want to consider wearing this clothing anytime you anticipate contact with moving equipment. For example, during interior demolition work, site work, or landscaping operations. Many employers now require full-time use of high visibility clothing in all areas. The mantra is, see and be seen. Electrical hazards, too, may require special personal protective equipment. Most of us simply plug in and go, but where employees such as electricians and maintenance workers are concerned, personal protection against arc flash is imperative. Be sure you know the rules and have the correct equipment before ever working on live circuits. Finally, if you're exposed to loud noise, use either earmuffs or earplugs. Loud noise over a period of time can damage your hearing. Another critical area to workplace safety is fall protection. Falls are the #1 cause of fatalities in construction. In our industry, we often work at heights. But it's not just a fall from the top of a high-rise that can be a problem. Shorter falls can be just as dangerous. In most situations, if you're exposed to a fall while you're working, you'll need some type of fall protection. Good fall protection programs are essential in every work site. These programs include pre-planning of potential exposures, training, and proper use of good equipment and/or materials. There are basically 9 types of fall protection: guardrails, safety nets, covers, fall restraint, personal fall arrest systems, warning lines, controlled access zones, safety monitors, and fall protection plans. Each of these fall protection systems has a specific use. Your employer will choose the type of fall protection that you need, but it's your job to use that protection correctly. Whatever fall protection you're using, always look over the entire system before you trust your life to it. If you're using hole covers, make sure they are labeled correctly and secured in place. If you're using guardrails, be sure that they're in good condition, properly installed, and that toe boards are firmly secured. If you're using a safety net, check the net and its anchorages for any fraying or wear. Remove debris before it accumulates. Restraint devices, such as self-retracting lanyards, can help in loading areas or in leading edge work, but be sure to use them properly. Ask your supervisor for guidance and always read the instructions. The key to success with a restraint system is that it's arranged so you can't fall. If you're using a personal fall arrest system, look for tears, fraying, worn hardware, or anything else out of the ordinary. Inspect every day before use. Use only double locking snap hooks to prevent rollout. And make sure the lanyard is the right one for the anchorage points you're using for support. Be sure that you use your lanyard properly. Never wrap it around pipes or other objects unless you know it's designed for that use. Read the label. Never tie knots in it, and never attach hook to hook. Never tie off outside a basket when using boom or scissor lifts. Changes in manufacturing standards and technology have given us some great new fall protection systems. If your gear is more than 3 or 4 years old, showing visible signs of wear, or simply doesn't feel right for the application, speak with your supervisor about upgrading these systems. Remember, today's standards require anchorages for PFAS to support 5,000 pounds, so you effectively must be able to hang a pickup truck from what you clip to. Make sure it's safe. Yet another serious hazard on construction sites is moving vehicles. In fact, the #2 cause of fatalities in construction is being struck by an object. In many cases, that object is a vehicle. On a job site, there is activity all around you. The hazards can change drastically from one minute to the next. Materials or pedestrians can show up where you least expect it. If you're not paying attention, an accident could happen at any moment. Check your vehicle before each trip. Inspect the tires and adjust the mirrors. Secure your load. Lost cargo can cause serious accidents. Always check your seatbelt. You need to look out for your own safety too. Use extra caution when backing up. A large percentage of struck-by fatalities continue to be caused by backing equipment. Make sure the vehicle backup alarm is working properly before you start. To help ensure safety, have a signal person assist you. Always be on your guard. When driving, stay alert. We spend so much time operating vehicles on and off the site that we can easily become complacent. Speaking on a cell phone or listening to a music player when operating vehicles or equipment can be a distraction. Limit your use. Use hands-free when possible. And be sure to follow your company or job site rules about cell phone or music player use. Don't let your distraction cause an accident. Another leading cause of fatalities in construction is the result of being caught in between objects. Cave-ins account for most of these fatalities. In fact, cave-ins are 15 times more likely to result in death than other construction accidents. If you have to go into or work around a trench or excavation for any reason, make sure you're familiar with the safety regulations necessary for your protection. If the trench is 5 feet deep or deeper, it must be protected from cave-ins by sloping, benching, or shields. Some excavations less than 5 feet deep will also require protection. For your own safety, never enter any trench or excavation until the designated competent person tells you it is okay to do so. Ask your supervisor to identify the competent person. Regulations also require that all excavations deeper than 4 feet have a means of exit, such as a ramp or ladder. These must be located no more than 25 feet in any direction, so that workers can exit quickly in the event of a cave-in. Remember, in construction, conditions can change at any time. Be alert for anything out of the ordinary in any trench or excavation, like water flowing in, cracks in the walls, partial cave-ins, or damaged shoring materials or trench boxes. If you see anything that could result in a cave-in, get out of the trench and warn other workers to do the same. Report the situation to your supervisor immediately. Finally, if you ever do witness a cave-in, don't go into the trench or excavation for any reason, even if a coworker is still in it. Call for a trained rescue team immediately. Many would-be rescuers have been killed trying to help coworkers. Electrocution is another leading cause of fatalities in construction. Remember, even low-voltage sources can generate enough current to kill you. We may not be able to avoid using electricity, but we can learn to use it safely. Most electrocutions on construction sites occur from contact with electrical lines that have not been de-energized, contact with overhead power lines with ladders, scaffolds, or heavy equipment like cranes, or use of power tool cords that are not properly grounded or that are damaged or worn. To help ensure safety, be aware of the electrical sources around you, including overhead and underground power lines. Take all steps necessary to avoid contact with these lines. Inspect power tools and extension cords before each use. Use GFCI protected circuits, either breakers, outlets, or pigtails, as required at your location. Never use a power tool or extension cord that is damaged in any way. Using a tool that is missing the ground connection on the plug, for example, can create a shock hazard. Keep in mind that water and electricity don't mix. Never let the power tool or cord get wet, and never ever stand in water while using a power tool. Stay away from electrical panel boxes unless you are properly trained and equipped to work with them. And if an electrical accident should occur, stay away from the source of the electricity until it is de-energized. Do not touch the victim with your bare hands until you know he or she is away from the live electrical source. Many workplace hazards are easy to spot. Others are not. We come into contact with some pretty powerful chemicals on the job. Some can disable you before you even know what happened. That's why it's important to know the dangers of these hazardous materials and to take the appropriate precautions. OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard requires that all hazardous chemicals be labeled with appropriate warnings. Read the labels and follow the manufacturer's recommendations before you open the container. Before you handle any chemical, it's important to know the hazards associated with the chemical and the appropriate measures to take for protection. If the label doesn't give you the information you need, check the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. Copies of MSDSs should be readily available. If you have questions, ask your supervisor. Be especially aware of the potential for unknown hazardous and/or toxic atmospheres. Carbon monoxide, for example, can accumulate when using combustion-powered equipment. Always take adequate precautions when there is risk of exposure to hazardous atmospheres. We're so used to handling materials during the day that we can easily become casual in our work habits. But because we spend so much time lifting and carrying, and because back injuries are so common in construction, we need to pay special attention to how we do this lifting and carrying. Never lift anything that is too heavy or awkward. This is a sure bet for an injury. Ask someone to help you or use mechanical assistance. Make sure there is a clear path before you pick up the materials. Use proper lifting techniques. Bend at the knees, not at the waist. Get a good grip. Use your powerful leg muscles to lift the load. Use your feet to change directions. Don't twist your body. Twisting compounds the stress of the lift and affects your balance. These are simple guidelines, but ignoring them can cause serious and possibly long-term injury. Some workers like to stretch and flex before they do any heavy lifting or work that requires awkward movements. This can improve flexibility so that you don't wake up with stiff muscles in the morning. Finally, we need to look at substance abuse. I'm not going to preach to you and tell you how to live your life, but if your off-the-job pastimes start to affect your on-the-job performance, well, that becomes everybody's business. If substance abuse occurs on the job, you and others could be killed or seriously injured. Construction work in itself can be dangerous, but when your judgment is affected, if your senses are cloudy, or if your reflexes are slowed, you're putting your own life at risk as well as everyone else's. In construction, teamwork is critical. How confident would you feel if your partner had a few too many the night before? If you think you or anyone else on the site has a problem with substance abuse, Talk to your supervisor. Remember, a worker with a substance abuse problem is a danger to the entire workplace. Counseling and other help is available for those who need it, and it's always kept confidential. The safety issues we just talked about are only a few that are important in the construction industry. We can't possibly cover all of the risk on the site. There are many other subjects that require more in-depth training, such as scaffolding, fall protection, ladders, cranes and rigging, fire prevention, confined space entry, aerial work platforms, forklifts, and hand tools, for instance. The bottom line is, if you haven't been trained to perform a task or operate a piece of equipment, ask questions and seek out training through your employer or your union. An untrained worker and a powerful tool or piece of equipment can be a deadly combination. Don't ever work without the proper training or tools. When it comes to safety, there is no such thing as too much information. Construction work is for professionals, people who take pride in their work, their skills, their co-workers, and themselves. If we all work together, we can keep each job site accident-free, and that's really something to be proud of.